The night was heavy with rain, the kind of rain that felt as though the sky itself was grieving. Beneath the flickering orange glow of a broken streetlight, a man walked slowly, his worn-out shoes splashing against puddles as he held a small grocery bag in one hand and clutched his coat tighter with the other. His name was Daniel, a struggling single father who had already lived through more storms than most men his age. Every line on his face told the story of hardship, the long nights of overtime shifts, the endless bills piling on his kitchen table, and the empty chair at the dining table where his late wife once sat before illness stole her away too soon. He carried the weight of the world not only for himself but for his little boy asleep at home, dreaming in a broken crib patched together with duct tape. That night, Daniel had been walking home over the old steel bridge that cut across the river, a shortcut he often took to save a few minutes. But as the rain pounded harder, something caught his eye, a figure at the edge of the bridge, silhouetted against the rushing waters below. A young woman stood there, her clothes soaked, her hands trembling as she clung to the railing. Her body leaned forward just slightly, dangerously close to the drop. Time seemed to stop as Daniel realized what was happening. The sound of the river roared louder in his ears, and the sight of her fragile figure standing so close to ending her life sent a chill straight to his bones. "Don't jump," his voice broke through the storm, shaky yet filled with urgency. His heart pounded in his chest as he dropped his grocery bag, eggs and bread spilling into the gutter. Without a second thought, he ran forward, grabbing her arm just as her foot slipped from the wet metal rail. She gasped in shock as he pulled her back with all the strength he had, nearly falling over himself in the process. For a moment, both of them collapsed onto the cold pavement, rain soaking their bodies, breaths ragged as though they had both just fought death itself. Daniel's arms held her tightly, as though letting go would mean losing another life he couldn't bear to lose. Before I take you deeper into this story, let me pause here and ask you something. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of one act of courage to change everything, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Your support helps us spread these powerful stories to more hearts around the world. Back on the bridge, the girl didn't speak at first. She shook violently, not just from the rain but from something deeper, something broken inside her. Daniel didn't know her name, didn't know her pain, but he knew despair when he saw it. He had stared into its eyes too many nights when his little boy cried for his mother. He gently guided her to the safer side of the bridge and sat her down against the cold railing. Her makeup had smeared, but even through her tear-streaked face, there was something hauntingly beautiful about her. She looked too young to be carrying such deep sorrow. As minutes passed, she finally whispered a few words. She told him she had everything money could buy but nothing her heart needed. She spoke of growing up in a mansion filled with marble floors and chandeliers but absent of love, her parents forever chasing power and fortune while leaving her lost in loneliness. She confessed that the emptiness had grown louder each day until she found herself standing on that bridge, convinced the world would not miss her. Daniel listened, his rough hands holding hers firmly, anchoring her back to life with a grip that said, "I won't let you go." What she didn't reveal that night was her true identity. She was the only daughter of one of the city's wealthiest millionaires, a man whose name everyone knew but whose daughter's pain no one had noticed. Daniel, of course, had no idea who she was. To him, she was just a broken soul who needed saving, just as much as he needed saving from his own battles. Over the days that followed, their lives became intertwined. The girl, whose name was Claire, began to meet Daniel again, not on bridges, but in cafes, in parks, and eventually at his small apartment where she met his little boy, Ethan. For the first time in years, she felt warmth not from money or luxury, but from the simplicity of family dinners where laughter replaced silence. Ethan, with his innocent smile and curious eyes, adored her instantly. Claire found herself cooking meals with Daniel, reading bedtime stories to Ethan, and realizing that maybe her life wasn't meant to end but to begin in a new way. For Daniel, it was strange and almost surreal. Here he was, a man scraping every dollar together, suddenly sharing his world with someone who seemed to belong to a life so far removed from his own. But the more time they spent together, the less her wealth mattered. What mattered was the way she began to heal, the way her smile slowly returned, and the way she, in turn, began to heal him. Claire pushed him to dream again, encouraged him to believe he could be more than just a tired factory worker. She reminded him that love and hope still existed, even in the darkest of nights. The turning point came when Daniel learned the truth. One evening, after weeks of friendship and growing closeness, a black limousine pulled up outside his tiny apartment. Out stepped a man dressed in an expensive suit, with security guards behind him. It was Claire's father. At first, Daniel thought he was there to drag his daughter away and forbid her from ever seeing a man like him again. But instead, the millionaire shook Daniel's hand with tears in his eyes. He had found out how Daniel had saved his daughter's life on that bridge, and he admitted that all the wealth in the world had blinded him to what truly mattered, his child's happiness. From that moment, everything changed. Claire's father supported Daniel and Ethan in ways they never thought possible, not with money thrown carelessly, but with genuine gratitude and care. Yet Daniel never allowed himself to depend on wealth. He continued to work, to build, and to show his son that integrity was more valuable than gold. Claire, choosing love over loneliness, stayed by his side. And together, they built not just a family but a sanctuary of healing, proof that two broken souls could find strength in each other and rise again. The story of that rainy night on the bridge became more than just a memory, it became a symbol. It was proof that one act of kindness, one moment of courage, could alter the course of multiple lives forever. Daniel had saved Claire from the edge, but in truth, she had saved him as well, reminding him that even in struggle, even in loss, love had a way of finding those who believed in it. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in the miracle of second chances and the power of kindness, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and don't forget to subscribe to Stories Collection for more powerful, life-changing stories. Your support means more than words can express. And before we end, here's a special request. Please comment below. Do you believe one act of kindness can truly change a life? Your words might inspire someone who desperately needs it today. The rain that night felt different, as though the heavens themselves were mourning. Each drop fell like a tear against the old steel bridge, soaking the pavement and muffling the sound of distant city lights. Daniel walked slowly, his body weary from another double shift at the factory. His coat was thin, barely shielding him from the cold, and in one hand he carried a small grocery bag, milk, eggs, and a loaf of bread. It wasn't much, but it was enough to feed his 4-year-old son, Ethan, who was asleep back in their tiny apartment. Daniel had learned to live with exhaustion. Since losing his wife to illness 2 years earlier, every day had been a battle. He woke before sunrise, worked until his hands ached, and still came home to bills that never seemed to shrink. But despite the weight pressing down on him, he kept going. He had to, for Ethan. That night, as he trudged across the bridge, something in the shadows made him stop. Just beyond the flickering streetlight, a figure stood at the edge. It was a young woman, drenched in rain, her hair clinging to her face as she leaned over the railing. One slip, one decision, and the rushing black river below would swallow her whole. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. Without thinking, he dropped his bag, eggs shattering, milk spilling onto the pavement, and ran forward. "Don't jump," he cried out, his voice cracking with urgency. His shoes slipped on the wet ground, but he pushed on, reaching her just as her foot slid off the slick rail. With all his strength, he grabbed her arm and pulled, both of them tumbling hard onto the cold pavement. For a long moment, the world was nothing but rain and breathless silence. Daniel clung to her trembling body, terrified that if he let go, she'd slip away forever. She was shaking violently, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock and sorrow. "Before I take you further, let me pause and ask, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of one act of courage to change a life, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Together, we can spread hope to more people who need it." The girl said little at first. Her lips quivered, and her sobs were barely audible against the roar of the rain. Daniel didn't ask questions. He simply sat with her, holding her hands in his calloused ones, grounding her to the earth she had nearly left behind. Slowly, broken words spilled from her lips, confessions of a life filled with wealth but empty of love. She spoke of mansions with crystal chandeliers, private schools, designer clothes, and endless luxury. Yet behind the gilded walls was silence. Parents too busy chasing success to notice the loneliness growing in their daughter's heart. Her name, she whispered, was Claire. She admitted that she had convinced herself the world wouldn't miss her. But Daniel, listening through his own weariness, understood pain all too well. He told her, not with words, but through the strength of his presence, that her life mattered, that she was not as invisible as she believed. What neither of them knew that night was how much this encounter would change their lives. Claire, the hidden daughter of one of the city's most powerful millionaires, had found hope in the arms of a man who had nothing but his love for his son. And Daniel, who had spent years believing he was barely holding on, had discovered that even in his brokenness, he could save someone else. In the weeks that followed, their paths intertwined. Claire visited Daniel's apartment, where she was welcomed not with riches, but with warmth. She laughed with Ethan, cooked simple meals, and for the first time in years, felt part of a family. Daniel's burdens didn't vanish, but they grew lighter, because in helping Claire heal, he too began to heal. The story of that night on the bridge became more than just a moment of despair interrupted. It became the beginning of something neither of them expected: hope, love, and the proof that sometimes the poorest man can offer the richest gift, a reason to keep living. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to Stories Collection. And before you go, I have a special request. Comment below with your answer. Do you believe one act of kindness can truly change a life? Your words might inspire someone who desperately needs hope today.